Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line on the future of women's awakening, fulfillment and success with Letitia Cook of Women Up Limited and Didi Ananda Rashmika of Mujer Despierta.
Hello, this is Beyond the Bottom Line, a monthly exploration about women's awakening and fulfillment so that all women may reach their full potential, being their full feminine selves. Didi is joining me in the studio as always, and today we're going to talk about purpose. So Didi, tell me, what do you define as purpose, and how should we or could we use it to make our lives happier, to make us more fulfilled, more curious, more energized?
Hi, Anna and listeners. For me, a sense of purpose changes absolutely everything. Because when I have a clear purpose to reach, almost anything is possible and almost anything is bearable. It gives great motivation. It gives you capacity to tolerate stuff. And a purpose can be, I think it can actually be almost anything. It can be something for your family. It can be something for yourself. It can be something for the world. It can be something really great. It can be something small. But when we have a purpose, everything else kind of falls into place and falls into, is manageable. Mm-hmm. Well, there is a saying, I have no idea from whom, that when you have a purpose, everything is tolerable. Or it was in a more eloquent way, but I didn't write it down. But I think it's really important. And if you have heard of Viktor Frankl,
yes,
Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning.
That's right.
That's right. And there is an example in there that inspired me, and it's been years since I read it, and I still remember it. Because, we suffer a lot. We suffer a lot from our negative emotions and from disappointments and pain. And we had something else in mind that what really happened. And Viktor Frankl, who had survived several concentration camps, he's a Jewish psychiatrist who was already working on something along these lines. But with all his experiences in the Nazi camps, he could see that those who survived were the ones who had purpose, who had hope for something else. And those who gave up hope or who had no purpose to live for, they wouldn't survive the hardships. So he based his whole practice on that afterwards.
Yeah. And
the example he gave to me was amazing. There was a man, elderly, maybe in his 70s or 80s, and his wife had recently died. They'd been together for, 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. So he was grieving tremendously. And, we all understand that suffering. We can all empathize with that. And usually, well, that's it. That's how life is. Yeah. But imagine that Viktor Frankl asked him, what would it be like if you would have passed away before your wife did? How would she have felt? I said, it would have been terrible for us. You would have been so lonely and, it would be devastating. So you see, the fact that she passed first and the fact that you are carrying this burden now, the purpose is that she doesn't have to suffer this. The woman you love so much didn't have to go through this suffering. And it turned around everything. Because now his suffering of missing his wife and the grief he was going through had purpose. And the purpose was that his beloved wife didn't have to suffer this. Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, he would still have the pain, but now it's bearable because there's a purpose to it.
Yes. Now, I think that's a very, very interesting example because it shows so much that if we find a reason that resonates with us, that we feel strongly about, it helps us move in a different direction, find a way of getting through something if it's difficult, or of really creating our flow, our energy, And I think linking our passion as well, if it's something positive. So a lot of people talk about purpose and also about passion and about goals. And frequently I hear them almost used as though they're the same word and the same thing, but they're not. So what do you think are the differences, and how do you think we can link them all to get the best effect?
Well, I would think if the purpose is the goal, I mean, the thing you're aiming for, the reason you're doing something. Passion is more describing the state you're doing it in. No?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good if you feel passionate about your goal, but I mean, that means that you're doing the things in the meantime with passion, but I don't think it's always a matter of passion. I've been thinking about this because coming from Western Europe and then living in different countries and visiting even more countries, I see great differences. And I come from a privileged background. I mean, almost by definition in Western Europe, we're from a privileged situation compared to a poor farmer in India.
Yes.
But I have seen the poorest people who have almost nothing working really hard jobs with a big smile on their face.
Yes.
When I worked in the city of London, you don't see many big smiles at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning.
You see a lot of coffee.
If you get a smile, it'd be a sarcastic one usually.
Yeah. God, I remember the days, yes.
So, and it made me wonder, what is the difference? Because, I mean, an office job that pays really well for you to have whatever you need in terms of your physical needs or your material desires, while this farmer works really hard, barely scraping by, but he does it happily. It's not because that job is his passion, but he has a purpose. For example, it's the first time that he can put his children in school.
Yeah.
So for me, passion and purpose, they don't always go together, because if you would ask that farmer in India, what's your passion? He would look at you like, what? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a matter of survival, but he can do it happily if he, for example, and it's an example, he can put his kids in school and they can have an education so they can have a better life.
Yes.
For many parents, the hardship that they go through, not necessarily only farmers in India, but for any parent who goes through hardship out of love for their children, it's not because it's a passion, it's because they love their children and it has a purpose for them, because now their kids will have a different opportunity. They won't have to suffer like they do. So if their suffering has purpose, it's not a suffering anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And would you say, I mean, talking about passion again, because so many...
You want to keep going back to passion, eh? Okay.
Sorry. No, because so many people talk about find your passion.
Yep.
Bring your passion to your work. And I mean, I talk about it, and I think the way I'm thinking about that type of passion, so bringing your dream, bringing your skills, bringing what you really feel alive doing, bringing that into your work or making that your work, I think that is a great definition of finding your passion. But to me, that is very similar to your purpose, which is different to something that you're passionate about. So do you think that we're misusing the word passion in that situation, and in fact it's more purpose? Or do you think it's a mixture of the two? And as well as that, do you think that's something that's much more in the Western world because we do have more choice and we do have more advantages?
Yeah, there is something in that, because once you have all your basic needs met, right, you kind of have the luxury to think about other things.
Yeah.
When we talk about finding your passion, what I've noticed here in South America, there's a huge drive for, like there's a lot of coaches, even very young guys who are now coach, and it's all this positive thinking and stuff like that, and your passion, and be a leader. And the reality is, not everybody has leadership qualities. Not everybody is a leader. Not everybody has to be a leader. Some people are not necessarily having big dreams, and they want a nice, quiet life. right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's not like this burning passion to do something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I hear you talk, I got this feelings like bring your passion into what you do. It's more of a style of working.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
If I think about a friend who became I can even give my own example. When I quit my PhD and I became a volunteer, and I dropped on the social ranking of everybody, I incurred some debts on top of everything else. And I was doing all this volunteer work, which I really wanted to do and which I was really passionate about and I love to do, but I needed that money. So I started to clean. I found a contact that I could clean their house one afternoon per week. Yeah. And in that way, I could slowly make some money back.
Yes.
And of course, they didn't know my background, and they thought I was a cleaning lady, which is fine. I don't mind, you know. I mean, but because I was determined to do a good job, I got a pay rise on my first job, on my first afternoon.
Well done.
Yes. So I thought, in case everything else fails, I can always go back and clean houses. But what I've noticed in my own life and with, for example, volunteers that I've had in the different projects, someone who a friend of mine who was a trader then decided to give all that material life up and who's doing social work now. She is an excellent volunteer wherever she is because she does it with the right spirit.
Yeah.
Right? And I've had volunteers who they have the same possibility to do something, but they don't.
Yeah.
So a lot of that passionate is like a style of working, of doing something. Like if I do it, I do it well. You know?
Yes.
If I attend to customers, I do it well. If I clean a house, I do it well. Because that is who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Which I don't know. These words of passion, purpose, they can be used in many different ways.
Yeah.
But a passion only being a big dream for my life is not the only thing. I think it's like you can do things, small things, with a lot of passion or attitude, or you know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gesturing here. I don't know which words I do to express it with.
Okay, so going back to purpose, it's talked about more and more. Some people have got very lost about what is a purpose. Some people just reject it because they think it's a bit sort of airy-fairy. They haven't really thought enough about it. But if we do accept that having a purpose is going to make our life better, it's going to make us more fulfilled, it's going to help us with our potential. Yeah. How can we find what our purpose really is? Because sometimes you can think, yeah, I understand that, I get that, I know it's going to help me, I know I'm going to feel better, but I don't know what my purpose is. And you get completely lost and floundering because you're running around trying to find this purpose, but you don't really know what you're doing, how you're doing it, or you know what really helps you understand what your purpose is.
And if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to have a hard time finding
it. So how do you think we can...
Can I first reply to this idea of rejecting it because it seems airy-fairy?
Yeah.
I can imagine someone who is who would think it's an airy-fairy concept would be someone who is very much into social success, for example. So I have a house, I have salary with this many figures. Yeah. I need to have my kids at university, this and this and this. Fine, that is also a purpose, and for many in a career, with a career that is a purpose, or it has been a purpose. Okay, then you're 45 and you've achieved all that. And then what? Right?
Yeah.
So someone may say it's airy-fairy. I would like to discuss with that person. If you find one, tell me.
Okay, I will.
Because this midlife crisis, when you have everything you want materially in terms of family, and there's not even that much you can complain about, even if you have all of that, something is missing.
Yeah.
There has to be an aspect of self-improvement. And I don't mean like more skills and more communication skills and more NLP. All of that is good, but there is more, something much deeper in every human being, because every human being has a desire or a thirst for limitlessness.
Yes.
For going beyond. So in this search of what it would be, what is your purpose? It can be something very specific. Of something someone loves to work on, or something one loves to develop, or the way one likes to contribute. But it's an important question to ask yourself is, if your job, for example, now would not pay you anymore, would you continue doing it? Or let's say you would win the lottery today.
Yes.
I don't know how many millions pounds is the lottery in the UK. Would you continue working or not?
Yeah.
How much your life would change?
Yeah.
I can tell you, of course, I would welcome a few million pounds, no problem at all. And it would allow me to do certain projects that maybe now I don't have the facility to do, or whatever. It would facilitate my work, but it wouldn't change me in my work and where I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But many people say, oh, I quit my job immediately. Okay, well, maybe you're not in the job that is exactly yours.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Right. And how would you then say you could get clearer about what to do with your purpose? Because that as well, I mean, the example you give about you would stay with your job because you love it. You found your purpose, which is great. But there's some people that they like their job-ish, not totally, but more or less.
Yeah.
But they still feel that something's really missing and that there's more they could do. And for me, that's someone that they've understood a lot, but they're still looking for the real deep purpose. So they haven't quite got all the way there. So how do you think people can find more? I mean, are there any practical exercises you think they could do, or anything, like, I mean, I often suggest to my clients that they write a list of the things they like most and the things they like least, and what they could add into one side and what they can take away from the other side, to refine. And they feel full of energy and smiling, and they get up in the morning really looking forward to the day, then they're definitely going in the right direction. But is there anything else you can suggest? Because I know from the work you do, a lot of this comes into it. What would you recommend?
Here in South America at the moment, we run retreats. That's 2 days. We even had some of 3 days, which is the school to propose to discover your your purpose.
Yes.
Right? And there's a lot of exercises. We have a lot of talks, but also a lot of exercises of reflection on what are your strengths, what are your qualities, what are your values. Yeah. And there has to be a lot of self-reflection. You have to be very honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And really think, disconnected from everything else. Not something that you do on the side while you're sending messages. Something to really go deep within yourself and to think about what it is that you're really looking for. And then also, there's 2 aspects to this purpose. One is a purpose in the external world. But if there's not also a purpose in your inner world, right? Without making it too airy-fairy, since that word already came up, self-actualization or self-realization, or going beyond yourself, or making the best version of yourself. and not of yourself like this little ego, but we'll talk about it in the future, some spiritual concepts which are very practical. Is that there has to be that as well, because anything from the external world is limited. All the money, all the success, it's still limited, and that is limited because this world is limited, and my sensory organs are limited, so my experience of it is also limited, right? Yet, as human beings, we have the desire to always want more.
Yes.
Right? So if it's 1 million is not enough, 2 million is not enough, we continue. 1 land is not enough, 10 houses are not enough. We all know, we buy something, even something really nice, how long does that pleasure last, right? So anything from the outside has to be that's fine, and there has to be a purpose, because we have to be living in this world, and there's great things we can do, but there has to be something inside also. And the reason a purpose is so important, because it's like the pole star, right? Because our life is never going to be in one line. It's never going to be a straight line up. So I may be redirecting here, redirecting there, but I have my eyes fixed on my pole star, my north. So I'm still going in that direction. And that's important, because sometimes you find yourself unbalanced for a while because of a house move, for example, because of a change in the family, because of financial setback, whatever. You may have to do things that are not directly in line with your purpose, but knowing it's there, you can temporarily, consciously make an adjustment. But your north is clear, so you know where you're going. Because if not, you're moving like a leaf in the wind. Exactly. Our purpose, and the purpose can be refined, and it can be improved, it may even change after a while, no problem. But it gives you direction, and to have a clear direction of where you want to go there, gives you the strength and the clarity to say no to other things that are not that don't help you, or that are not helpful to you in this search, in this endeavor, right? And small things, for example, if you have a goal to run to do a triathlon, very clearly, you can easily say no to a stag night, no, stag night, hen night it would be for us, right?
Hen night.
I'm not from the UK, I'm sorry. And so it's easy to say no, because you have something greater that you say yes to. And the same for any purpose that is different than a triathlon. Sometimes the small examples just make things clearer.
And do you think as well, it's something that I suggest to people, is when you decide what you really want to do, take into account, how are you going to feel when you're 80 or 85, or when you're really getting to the end of your life? When you look back, what do you want to be pleased with yourself about? So not just what other people say, but you yourself, what do you want to look back on and really think, that's great, I'm really happy with my choice there, I really believe I did the right thing. And I think that's very helpful. And also the external. I mean, personally, I think the internal, being happy with yourself about what you've done, I think that's more important. But I think it's also externally, when you look back, what you want others to remember you for what you've done well. I think that helps define it as well, don't you? Or
Absolutely. I used to do an exercise with people about, like you're walking into the church in that case, and there's a funeral going on. You walk to the front, and it's you in the casket, right? But nobody's noticing you. You're a ghost. And then you hear other people from your family, from your workplace, from your community, talk about you. How do you imagine they talk about you? Because one thing is like, well, I'm happy about what I achieved. I built up a great company. But if you cheated people in the process, you don't have much to be proud about, right? Like this is more getting in touch with your deepest values. which are an important guiding factor in this whole path, obviously.
Okay.
Another thing which I did when I was studying, as you know, I studied applied maths.
Yeah.
And for various reasons, something happened, and I started to question life, and I started to read a lot of these self-development books. And there was one in Dutch. It was called You're a Champion, and it had a workbook with it. And it says, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Yeah.
And I'm a student. I mean, 5 years is an eternity, right? And I had no idea, because I didn't see myself being working in maths necessarily, or being a teacher. So I just, instead of being very clear on how my life would look, which aspects it would have, it's more like I wrote down all the things that I wanted to be part of my life.
Yeah.
I become a vegetarian for my health, and I would never go back. And I was very interested in health things. So I was like, it has to be with health. It has to be. I love to teach people. I'm not going to teach maths, but I love to teach. I have no idea what I would be teaching.
Yes.
I like to teach. I want to be a source of inspiration to people. I want to make the best out of myself, and I want my work and my life to be integrated.